to be informative, inspirational, encouraging, and empowering. Today's webinar is going to be impactful. And I know that we're missing some women from the conversation. So if you can, pause. If you have your phone nearby, find someone in your contacts and invite her. Invite her to join. You can go to raptt.org/event, no S on the end, and they will gain access to the webinar by going there. Now, as an educator who has worked at the primary, secondary, and tertiary levels, I understand the value and importance of knowledge. Knowledge truly is power. When coupled with wisdom and integrity, knowledge is elevated to strategic, tempered power. Add in application, and that power is elevated further to now being productive. And I'm positive that each of us here this evening can think of someone who we know is very knowledgeable, but has accomplished very little or not as much as they have the potential to. Now, that person that you thought of just now is someone who has failed to follow through to that application step. I know that I've been guilty of that on occasion. Well, RapTT wants to help ensure that you follow through. So following our month of celebration, we're inviting RapTT members to immediately begin to apply their knowledge in two specific areas: authorship and the rediscovery of and realization of buried and dismissed dreams and aspirations. You'll hear more about those later on. Now, if you are already a RapTT member, you'll be free to join in. But if you're not yet a RapTT member, we want to invite you to join us. You can become a member by going to our website, www.raptt.org, and clicking on the membership button. Once again, welcome. Welcome. We are so excited to have you here. Our moderator for today is Ambassador Yolande Smith. Ambassador Yolande Smith is a strategic advisor and former Grenadian diplomat who served as ambassador to the United States, High Commissioner to Canada, and permanent representative to the Organization of American States. With extensive experience in diplomacy, governance, and institutional leadership, she has represented her country at the highest levels of international engagement. She is the founder and principal of the Colmar Group Limited, a strategic advisory firm focused on performance, impact, and institutional excellence. Her work centered on leadership architecture, governance strengthening, and elevating professional standards across public and private sector institutions. Ambassador Smith has consistently advanced leadership development, institutional strengthening, and the intentional transfer of knowledge across generations. Her work emphasizes the importance of mentorship, access creation, and long-term stewardship as foundations of sustainable progress within small state and regional environments. She currently resides in Grenada, where she continues to advise organizations and mentor aspiring leaders across the Caribbean region. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Yolande Smith. Ambassador Smith, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Mrs. Phillips Barnard. I am delighted to be here. Actually, it's a privilege for me to join the Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago, otherwise known as RapTT, for the launch of this year's International Women's Day. I'm excited, and I'm sure those of you who've joined us are excited about the conversation we're going to have. But before we proceed further with the program, it is my pleasure and distinct honor to introduce two individuals whose leadership and support have been instrumental in the development of RAPT-TT. Ambassador Brigadier General retired Anthony Phillips Spencer has served Trinidad and Tobago with distinction across military, diplomatic, and public policy spheres for more than 4 decades. 4 decades. A soldier, scholar, gentleman, and diplomat, he served as Trinidad and Tobago's ambassador to the United States from June 2016 to March 2024, where he advanced initiatives that strengthened regional dialogue and leadership development. During that tenure, he conceived and championed the development of the Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago. And alongside him is his spouse, Mrs. Joanne Renee Phillips Spencer. Joanne,
Renee.
a former economics educator for over 16 years, who has experience in both the public and private sectors. She has been deeply committed to creating platforms dedicated to connecting, mentoring, and empowering women across Trinidad and Tobago, the wider Caribbean, and the diaspora at large. She has served as the co-chair of RAPT-TT and president of the board of the Organization of Women of the Americas, where she worked to advance dialogue and collaboration on issues affecting women and families across the Western Hemisphere. Together, their leadership and vision helped shape the platform that brings us together today. So please join me in welcoming His Excellency Ambassador and Mrs. Phillips Spencer.
Thank you.
Thank you, and happy International Women's Day. Distinguished moderator, our dear friend, former colleague, Ambassador Smith, or distinguished members of the executive board of RAPT-TT, other members of RAPT-TT, everyone present here this evening. It is a pleasure for us to be able to join, just add a few brief remarks to this evening's proceedings before we get into the meat of the matter, the discussion.
Having served as patrons and sponsors of RAPT-TT from its conception and birth, we are delighted to share our first-hand and front-row experience and knowledge of the genesis of RAPT-TT at International Women's Day in 2018, its growth and formal launch in June 2020, and its grounding during the 6 years since then. As a platform for advocacy and action by, for, and with the women of the diaspora to empower all women and girls.
Particularly after its establishment in 2020, its registration as a 501c3 nonprofit organization in the United States in 2022, and its organizational development since then, the growing impact of the RAPT-TT agenda and activities has attracted increased interest and involvement. Women who have broken political and institutional barriers and ceilings in the highest public and corporate offices have partnered with and participated in RAPT-TT events. They include government ministers and leaders of institutions, including right here in Trinidad and Tobago, our own National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, NIRS.
Distinguished presenters and panelists in the past RAPT-TT events have included the first female president of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Justice Paula May Weeks, the first female president of the Industrial Court of Trinidad and Tobago, and now High Commissioner, Her Excellency Deborah Thomas Felix, as well as Cable News Network anchor Abby Phillip.
In that vein, we welcome with our deepest gratitude and pleasure my former colleague, author, and distinguished moderator for today's IWD event, Ambassador Yolande Smith, from the beautiful Spice Isle of Grenada. Ambassador Smith's participation also reminds us that the organizational development vision for RAPTT since its launch in 2020 includes RAP Caribbean and RAP Global. We must emphasize the critical importance of the RAPTT leadership culture that has been created by women from our Trinidad and Tobago diaspora, including some of whom will be honored today, to deliver the significant impact and influence to be undoubtedly experienced again at today's online seminar. Specifically, the continued success of RAPTT is directly related to the leadership culture for the involvement and participation of the women in our diaspora that is characterized by 1, an inspiring vision and purpose, 2, an integrating direction and process, and 3, an inclusive strategy and platform.
We commend the Executive Board and IWD 2026 Planning Committee for again championing the cause for the advancement of women and girls on this 2026 IWD #GiveToGain with our appreciation for this opportunity to participate. We wish you success with all your events planned for the month of March under your IWD 2026 sub-theme, When Women Thrive, We All Rise. Congratulations, RAPTT, and Happy International Women's Day 2026 to all women and girls.
Thank you so much, Ambassador and Mrs. Phillips Spencer, for those reflections and for the vision that continues to guide the work of RAPTT. And now, as we've heard, RAP Caribbean and RAP Global. This is what we're talking about. And now we move to a special moment in today's program as RAPTT recognizes the 2026 Women of Distinction.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. And thank you, Ambassador and Mrs. Phillips Spencer. Good evening once again. On behalf of the Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago, it is my distinct honor to commence RAPTT's 2026 Woman of Distinction Awards ceremony, in which we will recognize, celebrate, and honor 3 women of distinction. This year, as we join the global celebration of International Women's Day, we are intentionally recognizing women whose lives and leadership reflect selfless service, resilience, measurable community impact, and an unwavering commitment to integrity, compassion, and sincerity. Ms. Hazel-Ann McLean, Mrs. Maxine Barnett, and Ms. Nicole Julius were selected because of their many valuable contributions to RAPTT and directly to the women and girls of Trinidad and Tobago through leadership, mentorship, philanthropy, advocacy, and community building, and because they have each consistently supported the advancement of the mission and vision of RAPTT. This dedication to their dedication to the cause of women remind us all that when women give of their time, talent, and wisdom, communities gain strength for generations to come. This evening, I am honored to present the first Woman of Distinction Award to Ms. Hazel-Ann McLean, a mentor and a friend. Hazel-Ann McLean is a transformational leader, author, and systems builder committed to advancing women globally. During her leadership with the Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago, RAPTT, she led the mentorship pillar, launching its first cohort program with a 99% satisfaction rate. As second chair, she helped establish the organization's foundation, securing 501c3 status, launching its first website, opening its first bank account, obtaining its first sponsorship, and creating its core values: women on the rise, resourceful, invested, selfless, and empathetic servant leaders who are passionate about making a difference. She developed the internal executive board selection framework and later chaired the committee to onboard the current executive board. Thank you, Mrs. McLean. Mrs. McLean is the author of A Sparkle of Royal Blue, Memoirs of the First Female Student of QRC, and of the Executive Woman's Playbook, 8 Steps to Trailblazing Leadership, and the creator of the Be It framework, a system that builds resilience and innovation so women can lead with clarity and impact in complex environments. She is also the founder of the Rev Pod, recently awarding scholarships to women in Trinidad and Tobago and connecting them with potential investors. A Carnegie Mellon MBA and former McKinsey leader, she now leads Triverum, a global strategy and leadership firm. Ms. Hazeland McLean, in recognition of your outstanding leadership and unwavering commitment to championing the causes of women, it is my distinct honor to confer upon you today RAPTT's 2026 Woman of Distinction Award. Congratulations, Mrs. McLean, Ms. McLean.
Thank you, Mrs. Eve Avril Phyllis Bernard. I'd like to acknowledge the moderator, the Honorable Ambassador, Ms. Yvonne Smith, and the ambassadors, Anthony Phillips Spencer and Mrs. Joanne Phillips Spencer, and the executive board of RAPTT and the IWD committee, because I know that this event could not be performed without all of the work and efforts of everyone involved. And to my fellow awardees and speakers and to everyone on tonight, I truly thank you for this honor from RAPTT. I do not take it lightly. And the mission of RAPTT to empower women and girls of Trinidad and Tobago is an important one. And it is one that is necessary. And I have truly been a privilege to be a part of it and to be able to contribute my gifts where they can best be served to build a foundation that others can build upon. Because the mission of RAPTT is much bigger than any one program, any one board, or any one person. The impact that it can have when women come together to serve and to focus on their purpose, there are so many wonderful impacts that we can see and that we can gain for each other. I recall during my tenure of using a term that I'd like to share with you today that I hope that RAPTT will continue to endorse and use, and that is focus on the purpose, and you will not be disappointed. The work of RAPTT focusing on its purpose and women coming together for that one true purpose and mission of RAPTT is what will make this organization endure. And I look forward to seeing all the many more years and generations that you will continue to inspire and empower for the women and girls of Trinidad and Tobago and for globally and in the Caribbean. Thank you.
We continue now with Abayomi Edwards Dyer.
Yes. I'm coming on. And our second honoree is Miss Maxine Barnett. Miss Barnett, if you would come on, you're already on stage. If you would, yes, thank you very much. So we can spotlight you. So I know Miss Barnett personally. I would just give a precursor even to her bio. I know her because what Madam Chair, Mrs. Phillips Bernard just mentioned, even Miss McLean leading the first cohort of mentors of the mentorship pillar for RAP-TT. I was blessed enough to be Miss Barnett's mentee, and it's a relationship that we have sustained over the past few years and has benefited me not only professionally, but also personally. So without further ado, Ms. Maxine Barnett is the founder and principal executive and career coach of Soft Skills Services, an LLC, a global coaching and training service that helps leaders maximize, amplify, and leverage their soft or power skills to achieve their leadership and business goals, whether they are budding or seasoned executives, entrepreneurs, or business owners. A former HR executive and co-founder of the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, HRMAT, her career spans decades in talent acquisition, management training, and organization development and transformation, growing and mentoring future HR leaders along the way. A certified master coach, a certified international protocol and etiquette consultant, Maxine Barnett is the holder of a Master of Science in Organization Development, Leadership, and Transformation. She has served as the resident coach of Global Human Skills Mentor with GLAC Tech Organization based in the UAE, a program board member of the Washington, D.C. based Institute of Caribbean Studies, and adjunct faculty at the Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. An active diaspora liaison, Maxine is one of the organizers and has served on the panel of judges for the Under 30 Caribbean American Emerging Leaders Program from its inception 10 years ago. More recently, she has been invited to be the soft skills subject matter expert at the UK-based MCFM Global Academy and the US-based Black Professionals in International Affairs, where she serves on the protocol committee and as a mentor for its Madam Ambassador program that prepares young women and girls to navigate the international affairs arena. Her involvement in RAP-TT started during its formative years when she served initially as co-vice chair. Over the years, her roles have included chair of the International Women's Day signature event, speaker at IWD and other events, and mentor in the mentorship program. Ms. Barnett's life's work has been in investing in the next generation by giving back or paying it forward with her time, talent, and wisdom. Excellence has been her watchword. The young women and girls in her sphere of influence, whom she mentors personally and professionally, can be found not only in Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and its diaspora, but also around the world. Her commitment to people development in all its forms and her contribution to the birth and growth of human development is recognized by HRMAT that has named a legacy award in her honor, the Maxine Barnett Award for HR Excellence. And it is with that I would like to confer upon my mentor, Ms. Maxine Barnett, as a honoree in this distinguished event. Ms. Barnett, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Abby. As I tell everyone, you have graduated from mentee to daughter. and my two daughters know who you are. So let me thank Team Rap TT for this incredible recognition. But before I even do that, I would like to recognize Ambassador Philip Spencer and his wife, Joanne. I also would like to recognize Ambassador Yulan Smith, who is our moderator for the evening, the board of RAPTT, the current board of RAPTT, and the planning committee, because having served, I know what it takes to present an event or a series of events like this. So thank you, and distinguished ladies, and all those who are part of this wonderful evening of celebration. So thank you, RAPTT, for this incredible recognition. It is said that when one is honored by one's peers, it is a double honor. So I thank you for recognizing my peers, for recognizing the work that we have done together. You see, our peers see us when we are leading a meeting, rolling up our sleeves and getting down into the trenches. They see us when things are going well, and they see us when things are going not so well. So our peers really become like family. Before I move further on, I want to give a special thank you to Ambassador Philip Spencer. Ambassador Philip Spencer is the person, he's an ally and an advocate for women around the world. But I want to thank him specially for first inviting me to be part of the formation of Women's Roundtable Action Platform of Trinidad and Tobago, which allowed me to serve in to bring my time and my talent and treasure to serve in various roles, including the role of mentor. My daughters, who may be on this evening, they remind me that they are my first two mentees. And indeed, they may be correct, because our first mentors are our mothers and our teachers, especially our early education teachers, those teachers who teach us in the early years. However, reflecting on my professional journey from HR executive to coach to trainer, etc., I remember my first two mentors. And what is interesting, I don't think that we used the word mentors at that time. But now I understand that these two incredible women, they served as my mentors in my early professional journey. And right now they are household names, but at that time they were not household names. And the two persons I'd like to cite is Diana Mahabia Wyatt and Grace Talmer. These are two women who I saw as a young professional, and they helped me to understand the importance of mentoring. They always made space and time for me, and I made it my business. And I would like the mentees on to hear this. I made it my business to be in spaces where they were, either speaking or conducting training or just there, so that I can learn from them from observing or learn from them from just doing what they do. As I thank RAPTT for this honor, I encourage women to be role models, be examples to those in your sphere of influence, to be a sponsor, to provide access. And to be a sponsor doesn't only mean monetary sponsorship. It means providing access to various things. For example, our girls in Trinidad and Tobago, whatever access we can help to get them out here for further education. That's an example of being a sponsor. I encourage us to reach out and extend a hand and bring other women along. I do not believe in the expression, I'm the only woman in the room, or I'm the only woman on the board. We need to be helping others to be around the table with us. So let us make space for those coming behind us. And in any space we find ourselves, let us help young women and girls to be seen, heard, and valued. So I thank you again, RAPTT, for this. I thank you for this honor, and I also am very grateful to be part of this community that is so supportive and recognizing of women and girls. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce our RAPTT Vice Chair, Ms. Ava Edwards.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my esteemed pleasure to bestow this award onto our next honoree, Miss Nicole Julius. Ms. Nicole Julius is a dedicated public servant, community leader, advocate for positive change, and proud mother of 2 daughters and grandmother whose life is rooted in faith and service. She has built a legacy of volunteerism and civic engagement across New York City and internationally, always guided by a deep commitment to paying it forward. Ms. Julius has served the Women's Roundtable Action Platform Trinidad and Tobago RAPTT in several leadership capacities, including Vice Chair, Co-Chair of the Mentorship Pillar, and Chair of the Access Pillar. She currently supports RAPTT through social media engagement, helping to amplify its mission of empowering women through mentorship, access, and advocacy. In New York, she serves as Director of Communication and Social Media Engagement for Community Board 17 and the Burge College Graduate Student Assembly, and as co-chair of the Parks and Beautification Committee. She's also the Block Association President, organizing an annual Family Day serving over 200 residents. Ms. Julius is pursuing her master's in public administration and continues to lead with heart, purpose, and unwavering dedication to community upliftment. Ms. Nicole Julius, it is my esteemed honor to bestow unto you this award, Woman of Dedication. Congratulations.
Thank you. Before I begin, I would like to acknowledge Ambassador Anthony Philip Spencer and his wife, Joanne Spencer, Avril Bernard, the chair of RAPTT, the RAPTT board, and the International Day Planning Committee, our distinguished guests, and my fellow awardees. It is truly an honor to share this moment with such an incredible group of leaders and change makers. Good evening, and thank you so much for this incredible honor. I'm truly humbled to receive this recognition from the Women's Roundtable Action Platform Trinidad and Tobago, an organization that represents empowerment, mentorship, and the opportunity for women. RAPTT's team, Give to Gain, is one that resonates deeply with me. Throughout my journey of service, I've learned that when we give our time, our talents, and our support to others, we gain so much in return: stronger communities and meaningful connections, and the joy of seeing others rise. It has been a pleasure to serve RAPTT in various roles and to be part of a powerful network of women who continue to pour into one another. This recognition reflects the collective spirit of service that lives within this organization. I'm grateful to my family and friends for their constant love and encouragement, and to the incredible women of RAPTT for your leadership and sisterhood. I accept this award with humility and with the renewed commitment to continue to give, serve, and pay it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And at this time, I will turn the mic back to our esteemed moderator, Her Excellency Ambassador Yolande Smith.
Thank you very much to the presenters, and congratulations again to the 2026 Women of Distinction, Miss McLean, Miss Barnett, and Miss Julius. Their leadership reminds us that progress is never accidental. It is built through investment, examples, and the deliberate lifting up of others. Now, the theme for this afternoon's webinar, Give to Gain, challenges the assumption that advancement is individual. But in small states and across the Caribbean region, we know that the reality is different. None of us rise alone. Every promotion, every platform, every leadership opportunity carries the imprint of someone who invested their time, access, or knowledge in us. I know that when women withhold access, networks, and knowledge, we don't just slow individual progress, we constrain our regional capacity as well. So today's conversation is about inspiration as well as responsibility. If we have gained influence, visibility, and experience, the question then becomes, how deliberately are we circulating that power? Give to gain is not simply about generosity. It reflects a leadership principle. When women invest intentionally in one another, influence multiplies. So we're talking about mentorship, empowerment, and legacy. These are not abstract ideals. They are strategic choices that determine whether we progress or whether we plateau. Mentorship shapes potential, empowerment expands access, and legacy defines what remains after we would have walked through the doors. Together, these three ideals remind us, and as some of the recipients said as well, that leadership is not only about personal advancement, it is about what we choose to build for those who come after us. This afternoon, we are joined by three accomplished women, leaders, entrepreneurs, and change makers who will share how investing in other women through mentorship, empowerment, and intentional leadership has accelerated their own growth, influence, and legacy. Now, each of our panelists will begin with a short presentation of about 15 minutes, sharing perspectives drawn from their own leadership journeys. And after each presentation, we'll have a brief moderated Q&A. If you have not sent in your questions during the registration period, you can do so through the Q&A button on the screen. And we'll be happy to raise those at the time. So before we move on to the next speaker, we will have the Q&A. And then we'll bring everyone back at the end for a final conversation. So we will start with the foundation of the journey, and that is mentorship. Our first presenter, Ms. Janae Hira, is a Gen Now gatekeeper and leadership and personal development advocate who has spent more than a decade mentoring and investing in young people across Trinidad and Tobago. She's the founder of a nonprofit organization, Women of Excellence, which provides mentorship, leadership development, and personal growth initiatives for underserved communities. Her work spans community, regional, and international spaces through motivational speaking, presenting, and producing that sparks transformation. With an MBA in international marketing and brand management, Janae combines strategic insight with a strong commitment to purpose-driven leadership and youth empowerment. She will begin our conversation by exploring the power of giving through mentorship. Janae, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon and happy International Women's Day. So, even though I may not be able to see you, I know for sure that I'm going to be feeling your energy through our conversation. So it's such a privilege to be asked by Rap TT to present to you all today about mentorship. And the theme for this year, to me, is so timely with everyone, give to gain. And we must realize that where the world is heading back into a direction, back to themselves, back to the inner you, as my parents always say, about your being more than your doing. Because so many times we become so transactional that we forget that we have to be transformational for people. So we give to gain, but we don't only give to receive, we also give because there's something much bigger than who we are. Well, there is someone much bigger than who we are, which is our source. So before we dive in, I just have a little question for you all. And I know some of you all may actually be on your phones, on your laptops. You may have a journal next to you or anything, or your notes on your phone, anything that's good for you. So I have a quick question. Could you remember the moment when you decided that you needed someone? That moment when you said, I think I need someone to walk this journey with me. Or I think I need someone for advice. Or I think I want to learn from someone. You remember that moment? Do you remember exactly how you felt? Write that emotion down or write that little memory or that story. Now, do you remember the moment when you realized that someone needed you? How did that make you feel? Exactly how that conversation was. And I just really wanted to kind of open with that little question, that little icebreaker for us to start thinking. Now, especially with one of the honoraries earlier today when she was speaking about the next generation, right? And why is it so important? And I must say that RAPTT is really big with the whole intergenerational purpose and intergenerational impact. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, being like a Gen Now gatekeeper, which means just guarding the truth for the next generation. So many times we say next generation, but we must realize that they're no longer next, they're now. Who is generation now? Basically Gen Zs and Gen Alphas. We know from the ages like 27, like 11 to 27 and around 0 to 11. And we have Gen Beta that was just born only in 2025. So they haven't even arrived at 1 year old as yet. So we understand how these generations go. But there's one thing that this generation really need, and something that they do not like. They do not need systems to tap into, not the 1 hour workshops, not the temporary moments. They actually want people to do life with. They don't want systems to tap into. They want people to do life with. And people to do life with, yes, we know as mentorship. We also know that mentorship has a deeper word. Some of us who are believers will understand that they're also discipleship. And, there's a framework that, the Lord gave to me, and I would just freely say that, just being a Christian, and it's called DPTT. And I want to leave that with you. Discipleship, partnership, trust, and truth. That framework helps with the mentorship, especially with Gen Now and what it is that they need, right? Discipleship. They need that person to walk with them, to learn from them, to teach, to be accountable to. P, partnership. It's not just, okay, this is what you should do in order for you to climb this mountain. This is the 3 steps in order to do that. No, partnership. They need someone to partner with them, to do life with them. Trust. We all understand how they are. Oh, this generation everything is big on authenticity. We know how they are with the gluing on to influencers, and we have some Gen Z sign on here as well, and we know how you all rather the real thing. But the trust is being able to develop that trust. You want to develop that trust with your mentee. And the other T, which is truth. What is your truth? I know what my truth is. My truth is my source, which is God. And with his truth, he has also given us something that is uncompromising, and that's his word. Now, that is something that I will live by, DPTT. Now you're wondering, okay, Janae, you're only talking about Gen Now. What does this have to do with the whole overall topic with mentorship? The reason why I chose to dive into this today is because a lot of us here are accomplished women, right? A lot of you all are accomplished women. I am young and I am still growing and I'm still becoming. But a lot of you all I admire and I respect so much, you all accomplished women. And God has given you all the tools and the life gifts in order to pass on to the next generation. There's a young lady in your life right now. Like earlier today in the at the call time before the meeting, Ambassador, she was speaking about her granddaughter, and they were talking about different things that the granddaughter has to do. She has to accomplish something, and she would like to have a conversation with her in order to get that done. That right there is the mentorship. Because she's not just tapping into her, or she's not tapping into Gigi. She's actually doing life with her. And that is what we need to do. There are tools in your toolbox that a young lady needs right now to accomplish what God has for her. Why is it so important to pass on the baton to generation now? Because they are the generation that's going to finish what we started. They are the generation that is going to be facing things that the Lord has assigned to them that we can't dream to know. But the tools that you have, The tools that you have is what is their missing strategy in order to accomplish those things, in order to change the world, in order to transform lives, in order to disciple so many different people. You have the tools. Now, Generation Now, if you are on this call as well, you also need humility, because you need to understand how much having an accountability partner, having that mentorship is important in your life. You do not know everything. You feel as though you'll know everything because you can go on TikTok and, Google something quick, like what moisturizer should I use for my hair, or something simple on terms of your health plan or your career path. If you want to get into being a lawyer, if you want to get into medicine, you want to get into being a businesswoman, a consultant, you feel like you already know that. Then we require, and then we depend on AI, artificial intelligence. But I would say you need a woman who has walked that path with you to be accountable to partner with her. It's so, so important. Now, there's 3 C's I want to leave with you all as well, which is consistency, cultural intelligence, and your character. Well, I'll say character of Christ as well, right? Now, consistency, you need to show up. There's so many people that I will mentor the one-on-ones because I believe that the biggest impact to me, yes, we could be on panels, yes, we could be on platforms, but the one-on-one coffee calls or the late night conversations or that little conversation with Gigi that nobody would know about, to me, is the real impact. Show up consistent, be consistent. Consistency brings transformation when it comes to their life. You remember, they do not want a system to tap into, they want people to do life with. Cultural intelligence. Occasionally, we already know some of you all are already educated, especially the diplomats and the ambassadors and stuff like that, how important it is for cultural intelligence when coming into different territories. Why is it important to learn cultures? We're not only talking about ethnicity, we're not only talking about races, but every young lady, every young man has a different culture. I may have a different culture because my parents would have brought me up a certain way. So Shanae has her own cultural intelligence. Whereas a lady called Cindy, who has different parents, she will have a different culture. It's important to know the culture of your mentees. It's important to know the culture of your mentors when choosing. And it's important to pause to even allow yourself to have the cultural intelligence for them. Because once you learn the cultural intelligence, you realize it's not about the person. It's not about what they do, it's who they are. There's so many times they're like, okay, why did that person do that? Oh my gosh, they don't know better. No, but did you pause for a moment to realize that maybe that's all they were thought? So take a dive into cultural intelligence, do some research on it, CQ, and use that framework. There's a CQ framework for that as well. And the character of Christ, that's what I stand by, but also the characteristics and care that you have. Those 3 C's, it's really gonna help with your discipleship, partnership, trust, and truth when you walk with that young lady or that young man in your life. Or it doesn't have to be a young person. It could be someone around your age or even older. We all need someone. Now, we just spoke about the different things that, why mentorship is important, the different things that we could learn and the different things that we could use in order for it, right? In order to use that mentorship, in order to transform lives, right? However, I want to talk a little bit on the mentee itself, right? We all have this we all know the buzzwords now. Community, oh, you need community. We all need community. And community is no longer about your residential geographic location. It's about your space, your circles. Something my mom told me this morning, community brings unity. And we could see that within the theme, even in Rap TT and even their vision for this event and for this specific talk, the importance of what happens when you do pour into lives, the transformation that it has a ripple effect onto you. There's so many times when I may be having a mentorship time with a young lady, but the truth is, as much as I'm pouring into her, she's also pouring into me. But the only way that she's able to pour into me is because I had an open mind to realize that even though that she's younger than me, I could still learn from her. And that is where the transformation takes place. However, I want to talk to you about something and a personal lesson that I learned. And I really want to pass it on to you all. And maybe some of you all may actually have experienced something like that. And if you did not, let's take the warning right now because we're in a little mentorship and into you right as well. And I wrote it down because I did not want to overtalk or get animated with such a very important lesson. A lack of healthy community and mentorship leads to confusion. Vision becomes unclear. Growth becomes difficult. Compromise creeps in. Boundaries begins to break, and you become easily swayed. When that happens, your trajectory shifts. You stay longer in seasons that should already be finished, and you misuse the season you are currently in. And how does this happen? Because of your inputs. What you allow into your life shapes the direction of your life. Who you allow into your life shapes the direction of your life. No healthy inputs leads to unhealthy habits. And unhealthy habits cause you to misprioritize relationships that were meant to help you grow. So my question to you all, who is pouring into you as a mentor and as a leader? Where is your balance as a mentor? And what does your secret place as a mentor look like? We could talk about, you already know how to mentor. You could have your own mentor sessions. You already know it. We all have different things. But my question is, you as a mentor and you as a leader and you as a change maker, what does your secret place looks like? How do you pour back into yourself, or who pours back into you? I know who pours back into me, and he's my source. And I know what that session looks like. I know personally as Jeanette, I cannot pour from an empty cup. Let me tell you, I cannot pour from an empty cup. So because I know there's so many young ladies depending on me, I have to make sure that God fills my cup daily, weekly. I may not even schedule sessions if I know that, okay, all right, so I have to have my devotions. I'm so busy, that little burnout that happens to us as professionals, that happens. You take time with yourself, continue learning, because we're a lifelong learner. There's so much strategies that we learn every day. That one moment when it is you got so upset with somebody because they took your car park, that one moment could be a life lesson right there that you can use, because we're continuously learning. But the lack of community and the lack of healthy mentorship is a slow kill. But in the midst of it, we understand why it's important to pour into others. We understand why it's important to take care of ourselves. And we understand, most importantly, the importance of accountability. So as I close, I want to remind you all, discipleship, partnership, trust, and truth. Generation Now, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha does not want a system to tap into. They want people to do life with. How do we do life with them? By being consistent, by understanding their culture, having cultural intelligence, and also having the character of Christ, or also your characteristics and individual, your integrity and your care. And remember, we as mentors, we as the leaders need our healthy community to grow. We need to be accountable to others. Thank you all so much. It was such a pleasure talking to you all. And I, just imagine that we could feel each other's energy, even though I can't see your beautiful faces. But yes, Madam Ambassador, I turn it right back to you.
Well, thank you so much for such a spirited presentation. I think you just set the bar really high, and we need to keep up. I have some questions. Let me see if I can pull them up here, because I know you talked about doing life with people, not systems, intergenerational responsibility. You also talk about accountability and consistency, which is so important. So one of the questions that came up asked, it said you made a powerful distinction between building systems and truly doing life with the next generation. For women in leadership who often operate through institutions and programs, what does that kind of relationship, mentorship actually look like?
Yes, I think that's a very, very good question. And I think it comes back into balance and also your personal time. So with my previous role, I was doing some consultancy for a nonprofit in New York as the associate director. So it placed me in a position of like responsibility and leadership, whereas the entire staff was like 27 and younger, right? So sometimes you as a leader and the lady who asked the question, she has her staff. But what I did is that there were these 1 or 2 staff members that I would see that God really assigns you to. That little extra conversation, the little extra the extra love. You already know. And right now, you're probably already thinking about that 2 persons in your life. Even if you're not in an institution anymore, it have those professionals that really just cling to you. I would advise schedule that personal time with them. Schedule the coffee time, schedule the lunch time. Depending on, certain institutional boundaries and stuff like that, even invite them home, even with like a friend, another friend, you cook for them, or you, depending on the age or whatever, you kind of do life for them outside of the office, right? However, I do know there's the different institutional boundaries for that. However, I think active listening really helps with that. So instead of only your team, your HR workshops or your team stuff and all these different things, take it like 1 or 2 persons at a time. Begins to transform their life, and we could see the ripple effect. As my dad always says, I'm closing with the question, I don't want to overtalk, and a lot of y'all say this as well, when you transform one person, they transform their family, then they transform their community, then they transform their nation, then they transform their world. So that 1 or 2 persons right there in your company, that simple coffee or that simple breakfast will go a very long way.
Well, I have a question and I want to get personal. Have you invested deeply into someone of the younger generation? And have you mentored someone into a space that previously excluded them? And what shifted for that person?
So I think that's a very good question. It actually had me thinking, because I've never processed it in a way if they have now grown into a space that rejected them first. But I did mentor a few ladies. So I would say like, okay, let's look at 2. 1, mentoring her into a space where she probably would not have felt accepted or included, and it was like her family. And mentoring her into that place of, especially her spiritual walk with God, and also doing life within her leadership and growing, it has now really helped with her family influence and also her relationship with her parents and her siblings. So that climb became healthy, right? The next person was, she was like a team member, a staff member, and we did have those 1 or 2, one-on-one coffee times and stuff like that. And that grew with her self-confidence and assertiveness. And also now she has now grown into another company in another space in terms of where she's a little bit more accepted and confident within in operating with her strengths, So I think those 2 ladies, yeah, and that's kind of how it happened. But what I did is actually, when now thinking about it too, Ambassador, the mentorship sessions with both of them actually was not even that different. It was still more in terms of that personal touch, that worth, because you realize that once they understand their worth and who they are in Christ, it had a ripple effect in everything that they do, Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Talk about it that way.
No, thank you for that framing. I always say that mentorship is not linear, and you mentioned that as well. It could be older, younger. It could be somebody in your field, somebody in a totally different field. But you seek somebody out, and I think there's another aspect to that as well, where somebody seek you out and they can ask. Most people feel shy to do that, but in some instances they do, because they've been looking at you. And we have to be conscious of the fact as well that we've been looked at, because people aspire to be us. And we may think, well, we haven't achieved anything yet, but we're a step ahead, so they're looking. I had one other question. Mentorship is often spoken about as encouragement. In your experience, what distinguishes mentorship that actually changes a young woman's trajectory from mentorship that simply just advises?
So I think, so you're asking the difference, correct? Right. So
Yeah.
I think there is a difference with it. And I think it probably even expands based on your question before, in terms of, I think, how do I answer this? I think it has a lot to do with seasons and also how much we invest into that relationship or into the mentorship. Because I think even though someone, it may be different, but still similar. Sorry, because I myself have, I'm reflecting as well. Because I think even when you find yourself helping in terms of, let's say, a career path or professional space, it still advises them in the midst of it. But I think it has a lot to do with what is your role in that person's life for that season? Because I operate in seasons in my life, and they have people that I would have mentored years ago that it may not have been consistent up to today, but it was just like for that season and period for advice, So I would say it depends on exactly what that person is looking for. And also you have to realize if that person is also very serious and teachable. I'm going to say a word, they call it like, are you fat, F-A-T, flexible, adaptable, and teachable? And if they are, you would know like, okay, they will just probably take this advice, or let's continue working on this until transformation. And that comes with like how you customize that mentorship relationship, whether it's with sessions or whether it's just with you one-off advice. Exactly what does that person need?
Thank you very much. And I like the way you frame that as well, because there's expectations. They may just want advice, or they may want something more. So it's tailored.
Correct. They need different needs and seasons. Yes,
it's
yes.
tailored to that. I thank you so very much. We're going to move on, but of course we're going to come back to continue the conversation, because we're going to build on this. And you reminded us that mentorship is not just simply guidance. It's investing in another person's future, and investment becomes meaningful if it opens doors for opportunities. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador and team.
Yes, yes. And I will turn to our next presenter, who is Miss Suniti Maharaj Best. And she is one of the Caribbean's most respected journalists and media professional, with more than 45 years of experience across print, broadcast, media policy, and communication consulting. She's the managing director of Caribbean Newsroom, a digital platform focused on Caribbean current affairs and strengthening regional journalism. She also serves as the director of the Lloyd Best Institute of the Caribbean and Caribbean Yard Campus, institutions dedicated to regional development and education transformation. Her work reflects empowerment as informed participation in shaping national and regional conversations. Suniti brings a powerful regional perspective to our conversation as we explore empowerment in action. It is my pleasure to offer you the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. And may I say it's such a pleasure to be here and to say a special thank you to and Happy International Women's Day to all of you, especially Eva, who worked with me for many years and who taught me a lot of things. I think I would like to start off by trying to discuss the term empowerment, because when something becomes so commonplace, so a buzzword, it flies off our tongues easily and lose its power. And the word empowerment is now so popular that we don't stop to think, what does that mean? And I like to emphasize the M part of it, which is internal power that comes from within, that allows a person and assists a person in expressing the truth of themselves. Now, that is not an easy thing given the history of the Caribbean, because power in the Caribbean was the power to oppress the majority of people. And power could not be expressed as a normal part of their lives. And so our expression of power very often is subversive. It's underneath as opposed to overt, it subverts. And the model of power that we have is so oppressive that it has become part of the Caribbean culture that exists from the home to the workplace and the governance systems that are all designed along memory really of top-down power. And we all, in addition to that, women have the additional challenge of the quote-unquote weaker sex, the power behind the throne, and those kinds of concepts that say that the woman's place is at the back. The point I want to make first is that Caribbean women have additional challenges in the expression of their power. I'm inclined to say and believe, and I do believe that every child that is born as a baby is born with everything that that child will need. But as a child enters and comes under the influence and the interaction with people who were there before that child, very often the process is not one of empowering, but disempowering. And it starts right at the home. Because again, I come back to this point of the power, the idea of what power and management is. Our model has been one that is top down. So a child may be born in a house where the authority figure is abusive, is disrespectful, does not see the child as entitled to be. That we all have to be aware as we start, as others start their journey under our responsibility, and I'm talking here about babies, that recognition that what we have is a responsibility and a gift for that child who is born with everything that that child will need, but needs the support and protection and guidance of us, that child is allowed the space to find herself or himself to get to know themselves and for you to get to know that child. I make that point because I think a lot of the damage and the disempowerment with people happens very, very early in their lives. And it is not just the households where a parent is an alcoholic or they don't have the means, the material means and so on. In fact, it often happens in homes that have so much to protect in terms of their public image that they need their children to become reflections of their success. And the idea of who that child is and what is that child's journey is insufficiently known or understand or cared to be understood. And I say that having dealt with many, many teenagers whose main angst, and it's a very serious angst because they come to this challenge about who am I and what am I about in their teenage years when the confrontation starts to happen, that they start to discover themselves and find there's no place for that person in them. No place for that person that is in them in the environment in which they live. So as parents, I want to bring that first to the table, the idea of your own journey of empowerment is also part of your supporting the journey of discovery of your child's power, which may be very different from yours, and may even challenge yours. But the path to dealing with that, something that is so different from what you imagine your child would be, is what is the generosity and the wisdom that you have to bring to that assistance of that child. Because the future of that child depends on that. We have too many young people who are in crisis, in need of mental health support, who are, in self-harm, who are dropping out at an age where the parent loses control of them and they look for family outside of the home. And women very often in that case are in situations where they are desperately wanting to help, but don't have the community or cannot get past the shame, cannot get past the challenges of whatever their lives are, and may not find it in a supportive spouse or so on. And the challenge for all of us is, how do we help each other and help ourselves before these problems, before a child's development becomes a problem. And I want to say that it is to understand that you are not your child and your child is not you. Your child is born for some journey, and your challenge as a parent is to discover who your child is, who is the person that has been put into your hands, and facilitate that in such a way that their gifts do not become the source of their damage and danger. Because if you handle it badly, it will become that. If you handle it well, you will have the joyous person that you need. You may also find that so that's the point I want to make about the family. I can go very quickly because I have limited time, that there are different forces outside of the family. You may be doing the best and you may be doing the right thing, but you may not do enough or be able to do enough that when your child starts to go out there and encounters other institutions, other communities, and so on, including social media, that your child is equipped. And so to recognize that all these things are agents of empowerment and disempowerment, and how all of us, we, as well as our children, our friends, the people we meet, how can they be helped to recognize when their own personal power is being taken from them. It can be taken in schools by bullies. It can be taken it can be taken away from them by teachers who decide that your talent is not relevant. Your talent is to be invalidated, that your willingness a child's willingness to question an authority is a danger to their personal sense of who they are. And instead, that child, the gift of that child, maybe the gift of gab, maybe the gift of a curious mind is going to change the world. But that child is being told, constrict that mind, sit down and shut up, listen, not be heard. So schools do that, friends do that, job places do that, take away your power. And the challenge is, how do we equip ourselves to militate against those power suckers, as they were, parasites in your personal power? I can only say that it comes through self-knowledge. Before you can know yourself, your parents can help you to discover who you are by being willing to discover you. But then you are on your own journey, and your own journey must include courage. The courage to be alone, the courage to be willing to swim against the tide that tells you something else. And if you don't have it, find the support systems, create the support systems. I think Janelle was talking about that. Sometimes it's in the church, sometimes it's in a friend, sometimes it's, and people often reach out to me who don't know me. They just see, I've written something or so, and they find their way to my number or so on, or email. But we here are fighting, and we are fighting the factors that undermine are becoming more and more powerful because of technology. As you can see, the algorithm in social media, the algorithms push you towards like-minded people. And it therefore, because everybody in your particular group will be have your similar opinions, it becomes after a time reinforced until it becomes extremist. And you're going to find, because you're not open to different voices, the diversity that is so powerfully ours in the Caribbean, notwithstanding that, we are existing more and more in silos. And we have to know enough to know that we are in a silo. When you hear people say, everybody believes so, just understand you actually are in a silo. And you think that everybody in that silo is the world. It is not. It is one perspective on life. And you have to beat the algorithm to get out of it, to find out, be open and willing to finding what the other thinks, and to be willing to listen and inform yourself so that you can start to approach something called understanding the reality, understanding your reality, and learning to equip yourself as you listen to things that you cannot even begin to accept, that you absolutely abhor, to ask yourself, what is under that will help me to understand and build a bridge that will be able to help me to get halfway and help that person to come halfway towards me. Because we are dealing with a world that is getting increasingly what I would call cultish, fascist, and where emotion is far outstrips information. And we are soon going to have to deal with the young people. If we are talking about the future, they're going to be talking to AI therapists. They're not taking their problems to mentors anymore, human mentors. By the time they get to you is because they're in so much crisis from the AI therapist, because it's so easy, it's so private, they can unburden their secrets. So I want to wrap up. There's so much to be said on this subject, but I want to wrap up with the idea, with the suggestion that we critically appraise all our interactions, whether it's with the people we work with, whether it's our personal relationships, our friends, and so on, always to create a capacity for critical thought, to ask yourself, what is happening here? Is what is happening an act of disempowerment? Am I being disempowered because somebody is threatened? And if that is the case, what are the tools available to me to be able to hold on to my power? I particularly like this idea of the girl in me, the campaign that is underway, because women in particular, the responsibility of childbearing and nurturing children is a part of your life that makes you deviate from the child you were, the girl you were, the girl with the dreams and so on. But that girl survives, and that girl is there, and that girl is waiting for when you're ready for her. And so that the idea of coming and holding on in those periods where life and so on is leading you to give up on your dreams, still hold on, even if they're quiet. The time will come, and they may change, or they may just be exactly the dreams, and you are able at that time to pursue them. I thank you.
Thank you so very much for that impassioned presentation. And one thing that stuck with me is the disempowering. And I'm just thinking, are we then empowering women to lead or just to comply? Are we empowering our children to just comply? You know, you've described how institutions, social systems, and even technology can quietly take away a person's sense of power. In practical terms, how can women leaders and mentors help young people recognize that their power is being, diminished? Because they may not have that coping mechanism to realize what is happening to them. How can a mentor help? And while you do that, I'll look for some questions in the chat.
Yeah, so I want to say that mentors are the ones who their first responsibility is to always critique themselves. The assumption that you have a big job, other people respect you, you are a substantial person and so on. You may be full of biases. You may be full of attitudes that can actually disempower a young person coming to you. So it is always, the challenge always is to know thyself and to be true to yourself. And the person that you don't damage the person who is coming to you seeking help, especially because, you're a mentor. Everybody accepts that you're a mentor, but you're carrying so much baggage that is hidden. So we have to first interrogate ourselves. The thing is to put yourself, don't forget the young person that you were once. That's a crime that a lot of adults commit. They forget the truth about themselves. Some people grow up and nobody ever knows the things that they did as a teenager. because they just put that, they just cover it and they pretend they know. And sometimes it damages them. So walking in the shoes of the other, meeting that person where they are, you should have the wisdom, if you are a mentor, to be able to do that, to put aside your biases and to reach and to listen. What is this person trying to tell you? A young person may not be very articulate. They may come and all they will be doing is telling you how the world is against them, the family is against them, and so on and so forth. And you know, whatever their family is doing is very often because of love. But it is a confusion of how to express love between both sides and so on. So how do you distill that and the realities in that conversation to create the conditions for peace and communication, to disentangle the knots that have developed, to carry that person there? So I would say, yeah, put yourself in their shoes.
Thank you. I know you have a wealth of experience, and we often celebrate women's visibility, but visibility and decision-making authority are not the same thing. What structural barriers still prevent women from moving from the public voice to real power?
Well, the structural balance is really a woman's power. Woman who expresses the power within herself is identified as troublesome, is identified as difficult. And that's why I am often hesitant to celebrate the first this and the first that and the first the other, because often the first is somebody who is agreeable to the patriarchy. And I'm not making any comment on anybody, but space is made for that person. And so women find themselves women of courage and of strength have to find that in order to break that glass ceiling, I'm told by others, and I have to tell myself, I have to contort myself like a gymnast, and to accommodate that. And if I get through, fine. And then of course you have other challenges if you do get through, or you're just eliminated from the race. So women are still, women need to be at a table where they can speak their mind like anyone else and don't have to think, well, how should I put that so it doesn't offend a fragile ego? I mean, some things are negotiable. You do think about personalities when you're in negotiation, who likes what, but I shouldn't have to do that to the extent that women have to.
Ambassador, you're muted.
Sorry. And I think it may go back to the question that I just raised, but someone put in the chat. You made an important point that the Caribbean inherited a model of power that is largely top-down and often suppresses authentic expression. In practical terms, how can women leaders begin to model a different understanding of power in the institutions and communities they lead? And I think it may be similar
to what? Not just top-down, it's also a dysfunctional model. I think when you find yourself, you find yourself afraid to express your power as it should be, and you subvert yourself by it being what I call underneath. You're managing a situation like you have to turn everybody into puppets and you manage them from behind, that you have to seduce, and I'm not talking about sexually, I'm talking about, you have to seduce them to your position. Understand that you are using the tools of the oppressed. When you have to mask who you are, and this is why, the carnival, the mask is such a powerful symbol of the Caribbean reality, because we have to become somebody else all the time, depending on the situation. We have to limbo under the limbo bar where there's little space, and we have to do it as though it's a dance. When you want to just take the stick and throw it away and stand up tall. But, that is what we have to do. You have to flex all the time. When you find yourself not being yourself and having to contort, something is wrong. There is a toxicity that comes from the old code. That person that you're dealing with, there is a toxic relationship, and the origins of that is in the history of the Caribbean. And that's something you have to put on the table, and let's change it. And you find ways, There is a civil conversation that needs to go on all the time about how power expresses itself dysfunctionally, and how power is not nurturing, but is extracting. Not only our natural resources were extracted, but it's our own power. And now we have to pretend and play a mask to get ahead in the world.
Thank you so much for your insights. And of course, we'll come back again to wrap the conversation together. But I want us to move on to the third leg of the journey, and that is legacy building. We know empowerment expands, or it should expand, access and influence. But leadership ultimately raises a deeper question. What do we build that lasts beyond our individual careers and beyond the first person in that room, or the first female, or the first? What do we leave beyond that the first time that we walk through the door? And to help us reflect on that dimension of leadership, I am pleased to introduce our next speaker, who is Mrs. Dixie Lincoln Nichols. She is a health and wellness educator, well-being consultant, and women's health advocate with more than 25 years of experience in health science education and community leadership. She's a co-founder and chief well-being officer. I love that title. I want to have that someday. Of Life in the Pause, and the host of the Pause Pod, supporting women as they navigate midlife and menopause. Through her work in education, wellness, and community advocacy, she focuses on helping women move through life's transitions with knowledge, confidence, and support. Her work reminds us that legacy is not confined to titles and institutions. It is also built through community and knowledge transfer. Dixie joins us to explore legacy building, what it means to build impact that lasts beyond our individual career. Dixie, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Ambassador, and thank you so much, RapTT, for inviting me to this platform. I'm so thrilled, and as someone who grew up in Trinidad, it gives me great pleasure to be here to pour back into my peers, and of course, hopefully, the younger generation is a part of the group here. I love pouring back into the people whence I came from. Happy International Women's Day. And without further ado, I know we have a time constraint. Let's get started. I'm a visual person. This is a slide presentation. Please feel free to whip out your phones and take some photos of the screen. Okay, so let's get started. This is such a timely topic for me because I am building, but have not given much thought about legacy and what I want to do and how I need to structure my work so that it does live on past me. So trust and believe, I am learning here along with you, and through the research I've done and having been given this task. Trust me, come next week, Monday, the legacy building is going to be systemized for me. So I hope that this presentation gives you something to start with. So let's look at building your legacy from ideation to generational stewardship. And before we begin, let's just take a breath. I know it's been a lot, and it's been a lot of really great, phenomenal information. But let's just take a breath, put your hand on your heart, and know that you are not here by accident. You are here because something in you knows that all of the work you've done, the seeds you've planted, including the systems that you are currently building, and the wisdom that you've attained along the way, belongs not just to you, but to every woman who comes after you. So today's intention is to equip you with some practical tools to build a legacy that is intentional, that is values driven, and that has generational impact. Okay, so what is legacy? Let's reframe this conversation, right? And so I was going to start with what legacy is not, but I added only. Legacy is not only a resume of your accomplishments. Yes, that is important. All of the work that you've put in to get where you are is important, but it's not just that. It's not how much money you leave behind. Again, yes, when you move on, what you leave behind personally is absolutely important. But that's not the only thing that defines legacy. It's not just something you build after you are, quote unquote, successful. You have to think of, what does successful even mean to me? And it's not just something for the rich and the famous, the wealthy people in our communities and in our world. It is something that you can do even with the small things that you're doing. You can build legacy. And most importantly, legacy is not a solo act. This is not to be done in a silo. And earlier, Ms. Maharaj mentioned a silo, and I'm going to mention it again because we cannot build legacy by ourselves, right? So what is legacy really, right? It is the generational influence and institutional impact. What are we creating for our generations to carry on? And what is the impact that it's going to create after we've gone? Legacy is the systems and the structures that outlive you. Whatever you are building right now, when you move on, if it collapses, that's not a legacy. But if it stays strong and firm and there are people assigned to carry it on, that's your legacy. Legacy has values and it's preserved through intentional action. What are those intentional actions we're going to talk about? Legacy is your knowledge that you've taken the time to create, to curate over the years that you pass on to the next generation. And we're going to talk about how you transfer that knowledge, what vehicle that you can use to transfer that knowledge. And legacy is what younger women inherit from us. And we're going to talk some more about that. Okay, so let's start with the legacy lie that we've heard. And some of you might have heard it, and some of you will be hearing it for the first time. I'll build my legacy once I have made it. What is making it, right? We're taught to sit and wait. We are taught to wait until we have more or we had more. Wait until we are more, until we've proven ourselves enough to be worth remembering. But you are enough the way you are, and you are worth remembering regardless of what you do. It doesn't matter how small you start, right? I like to say start embarrassingly small, that's okay, and build the muscles. Whatever you build, if you systemize it, it is worth being remembered. So legacy is not some place that you land up and you stay there. It's not a destination. It's something that you practice every day. It's something that you position. Where are you in building your legacy? How are you building it? And from what values are you building your legacy? And it's a day-by-day decision that's going to get you to a place where you have your work ready and waiting. If something happens to you, it can be assumed by someone else and it can be carried on. So for women over 40, and I love talking to this demographic because I know women over 40, you are stewards. You've gained a lot of knowledge over the years. You've put a lot of work in. You've gained a lot of wisdom. This is a perfect opportunity. It is a window for you to open so that you can let the next generation in and inform them with work that they can then build on. All right, so one of the things I love to do is ground the work that I do in a framework called AAA. So in my case, AAA is awareness, acknowledgement, and action. So how can we look at legacy through awareness? What are you already building? And I love this because I look at RapTT and what they're building, right? They are very much aware of what it is they want to create for the present and for the future. So you think of what you are building, recognize the legacy that you are actively creating in your home, in your community, in the content that you are creating, whether that content is online, whether it's in a classroom, wherever it is, recognize what that content is. You can also be in awareness of what you are creating within your relationships, the networks that you are forming. So it's not just relationships in the home, like a significant other, or the relationships with your children and family. It's also the relationships that you cultivate within the workplace. You are leaving an imprint, but here is the thing. Is it an intentional one? Are you just doing it just to do it, or is there intention behind it? Let's look at acknowledgement. It is very important to acknowledge where you've been and where you are, and also where you want to go. Honor what season you are in and what it has cost you, right? Honor the grief that you've experienced along the way, because entrepreneurship, building a legacy is not easy. It takes work, it takes consistency. Honor the transitions that you've experienced. You may want to look at it in decades. What did you do in your 20s, in your 30s, 40s, 50s? And for women who experience, say, the menopausal transition, where were you in perimenopause? Where are you now in postmenopause? Where are you along the spectrum, right? These are transitions that we experience. Transitions in the workplace from one job to the next. Transition in relationships. Transitions as we parent. Sometimes we parent and then our kids go off to school or go off to live on their own, and we have to parent differently, right? Think of all of those things and honor them because they are a part of your legacy. All of the reinvention is a part of your legacy as well. So acknowledge the wisdom that you've earned and the authority that it gives you to lead, because it does. And then the third part is action. Yes, it's important to share your stories, but it's also important to build those systems that are going to outlast you. So move from sharing the stories and also share your experience by structuring them. So create the frameworks. For example, this framework that I have called the AAA framework is going to live beyond me. Create those frameworks, the communities, and think of the knowledge transfer vehicles. How are you going to transfer that knowledge over to others who are going to carry it on for you? How are you going to move it beyond it just being personal, right? So let's look at it in action. Right. Okay. So AAA awareness in action. You are already building something. And the first step to intentional legacy is recognizing the one that you are already creating. What's that? Are you in awareness of that? Do you know that you're building something? Or again, are you just doing it? Whether you know it or not, if you're doing something that's really impactful, you are at the beginning of creating a legacy. So be intentional about that. What do the women in your circle say that they've learned from you? Or what are you good at? What values are you actively modeling for the next generation? What would disappear if you stop showing up tomorrow? Would your work be able to go on without you? What story do you want your work to tell in 20 years from now? These are some of the questions actually that you need to ask yourself. And that's how you come into awareness, because you cannot take action about something that you are not aware of. So it always starts with being in awareness. And these are some great questions to ask about that. The next is acknowledgement. Okay, waiting for the next slide. Here we go. So again, grief is a part of the legacy blueprint. It just is. And it's not just grief, but I lead with grief because so many people tend to overlook grief, because a lot of people, we move into one part of our lives, we leave something behind, and we don't give ourselves enough time to process what we've left behind. But don't think of any of it as being wasted. Think of it as actual things that you can do and material you have for a part of your legacy blueprint. So what are some of the things that we should acknowledge? The sacrifices you made along the way definitely needs acknowledging. The wisdom that you've earned through the hard seasons, and not just through the hard seasons, through the easy seasons as well. I think all of it is important to share. The version of you that got you here, what did you have to go through to get here, to get you from point A to point B, right? Think back of that version of you who started a long time ago, who was scared, to the version of you now who's courageous and who's building something that's impactful and worth carrying on. We should acknowledge the stories that hold generational power. What are those for you? What are some of the stories that you've been told by your elders or people who have come before you that has given you a pathway to get to where you are currently? Now, why does this matter for legacy building? The thing is that unprocessed grief blocks intentional building. And when I say unprocessed grief, if you are holding on to things that were and you have not moved past them, it will block your ability to build for the future. It will block your ability to build for now and, of course, build for the future. It matters because your story is the blueprint. What you experienced all along your journey, from your childhood and as far back as you can remember, is a part of the roadmap that you will take with you and put into your legacy, right? For me, I grew up in a small village in Trinidad and Tobago with about 300 people. And that was a community. We saw community in action. And I have come full circle back to what it was like to be in community in that village as I now build out community in my own life and in my career. So also, healing yourself is a generational act. What we do for our well-being, how we take care of ourselves, how we nurture ourselves, and how we pass that down is an act of generational care and should be a part of your legacy. So again, wholeness, well, I shouldn't say again, because this is the first time I'm mentioning this. It also matters because wholeness is the foundation of a lasting legacy. And when I say wholeness, I don't mean perfect, right? Think of a jar. You have a jar, your favorite jar, it falls on the ground, it breaks. And then you take all of the pieces and you put them back together. That jar is now whole again. It's not perfect. You can see the imperfection through the cracks that you've stuck back together, but it is whole now. So wholeness is the foundation of legacy. All of the things that you've gone through has brought you to this space and place in your life where you can now start passing it down to another generation. Okay, so the third part of this framework is AAA in action, building systems that outlive you. Legacy is what you do, not what you say, the structures that you build, and it has to be intentional. So here are some of the things that you can do to build legacy. Document your framework. So for example, my AAA is documented, and I'm just going to use the work that I do here as an example. Write down your processes, systemize them. For example, again, AAA, I also have another framework called the 6 pillars of self-care. Write them down. I use them in everything that I do, and you'll see on the next slide that I seriously do. My well-aging philosophy is I believe in the wholeness and the expansiveness of well-being. That's written down. So make sure that all of your IP, your intellectual property exist. And not only do they exist, but they exist outside of here, outside of there. Put them on paper and make sure that they are in places and spaces that can move on without you. Number 2, build community infrastructure. Again, have ambassadors, perhaps. I don't know, like for example, RAPTT can have ambassadors who go around spreading the word. I have a community called the Pause Pod, and as the co-founder of Life in the Pause, we also have a community called Black in the Pause that addresses the specific health and wellness issues of Black women. And within there, we have pods, and these are communities in different states in the United States, and we want to move them around the world. But these pods act as vehicles to get the work that we're doing out. You can form chapters and councils, create structures that run even when you rest. Legacy needs stewards, not just followers. So it needs people who are willing to do the work and carry out the work of the organization and make sure that the values of the organization stay intact and continue on. The third, create knowledge transfer vehicles. I mentioned vehicles earlier. What are those vehicles that's going to transfer the knowledge or pass on the knowledge? Is it a course, books, mentorship? We've heard a lot about mentorship, which is absolutely incredible and super important. But you can also video archive the work that you're doing. And then ask yourself this question. If I disappeared tomorrow, could someone continue this work? If the answer is no, then get to creating a course, get to writing a book, get to mentoring, and get to documenting and videoing the work that you do. And fourth, last and not least, plan for the succession. Name the next leaders, train them, invest in the women who will carry the vision further than you can carry it alone. Because you cannot be the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. The legacy is not going to be created. But if you have the stewards who believe in what you're doing and who want to be a part of it, of what you're creating, then you can have exactly what's needed to plan succession. Okay, so again, no one builds a legacy alone. I'm being mindful of time here. Think of it as a shared vision. Legacy begins when more than one person believes in what you are building. Like RAPTT, we are witnessing it right now. There are people within this organization who believes in the vision of the organization, who's putting in the work to carry out that vision and ensure that it has a legacy. Knowledge preservation, what is documented, what is taught, what is transferred, what survives when the individual who started it is no longer there, or maybe it's not in the organization and is not alive. Distributed leadership. No single person is a bottleneck. Roles are held by many, not just one. So it's not just one person making all the rules, carrying out all the rules. Again, not the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Again, you designate roles for individuals to carry out so that the organization can move forward. Accountability across time. Back to stewardship again. It means future generations are held to the values you set now. So whatever you set now, the future generations will have that. And it doesn't have to mean that they will carry it out exactly the way you did, but they will have a framework, they'll have a blueprint, and they'll have something to work from. Okay, so this is just an example of how legacy works. And I'm using this group called the Combahee River Collective, which was created back in 1974 and disbanded in 1980. And they are a perfect example of how legacies are formed. They were a small group of Black feminists. They had no money, they weren't famous, but they gathered weekly or regularly and documented all of their work, all of their analyses, all of their procedures, and they built out frameworks. When they were gone, their work stayed behind. Again, please feel free to take pictures, snap a picture, right? When the collective was no more, their work stayed on, and to this day, their work is taught at universities worldwide by scholars and activists, and it's embedded in how we understand justice today. So the work of those feminists from back in 1974 still exists today because these women got together and they made sure that their works were documented and recorded and then passed on. On to the next slide. All right, so the one thing I would be remiss not to include in this conversation about legacy is self-care as an act of legacy. And so this was the pillar, another framework that I was telling you about. This is how I'm documenting my legacy, right? So this pillar I created and I put it into just about all the things that I'm doing because our well-being is super important. Without well-being, we cannot function, we cannot create the legacy that we want to in the first place. So think about the wise man built his house upon a rock and the foolish man built his house on sand. In order to be able to build a legacy, you have to have a foundation that's built on a rock. And for me, that foundation is self-care. And so here are 6 pillars that I invite you to consider when you are looking at your legacy, your purpose. Why? And it should be bigger than just you. And it should span across a lifetime. That's if you want to build a legacy. Sustenance. How am I nourishing my body? What am I putting in my body so that I can be well, so that I can show up physically for the work that I do? Relationships. How am I functioning within the community? How am I utilizing the community as a vehicle for generational change? Restorative practice. You have to restore yourself. You have to have a practice that you can turn to so that when things fall apart, when you feel depleted, when you feel empty, and sometimes we do, you can turn to that practice and restore yourself. So whether it's prayer, meditation, yoga, tai chi, qigong, whatever it is, have a restorative practice. Recreation, it's important. It doesn't matter what work you do, there should always be some joy and some fun within the frame of the work that you're doing. Joy is our birthright, and we should exercise that birthright. And then finally, finances. Wealth transferred is generational freedom. So what you're building, if you are building a blueprint that teaches the next generation how to build financial wealth, how to accumulate financial wealth, then you are creating a generation that's going to be free. So these 6 pillars of self-care should always be a part of any framework that you are creating because you are important and your well-being is also important. Okay, so for short-term achievement, so moving from short-term achievement to long-term stewardship, You want to shift from chasing achievements to creating those systems. You want to move from personal brand only and thinking about self to how can I create institutional impact. You want to think about being in a silo and solo excellence, where the praise is only for the individual, to succession planning. How can I set this up so that it can get all the accolades and do all the things that's needed for generational success? Moving away from burnout cycles, from being tired, from being depleted, to sustainable stewardship. And that's when you go back to those 6 pillars of self-care, because that is what's going to keep you sustained and well as you continue with the stewardship. So what will younger women inherit depends on what you build now. So what will they inherit? A roadmap through life's hardest transitions and the good transitions as well. Honesty, empowering, and culturally relevant information. Super important, right? They don't want things that are watered down and centered in untruths. They want truth, they want empowering, and they want culturally relevant. You need to speak to your experience as a woman of color, as a Black woman, as an Asian woman, right? Wherever you are is where you should speak from. And so you're helping the next generation to understand that moving from a place of empowerment and cultural relevance is going to move them forward. They will inherit permission to age with vitality, to age with joy, to age with ambition, and no apologies. Growing older is a beautiful thing, and we don't want them to be scared. And so this is what they will know that they have to look forward to. They'll inherit systems and communities that they can plug into rather than building from scratch. So success leaves clues. No one wants to go back and build everything from the bottom up. Nope, they've got a framework, they've got a blueprint, they can tweak, they can, change things around to suit their time. However, the framework is going to be there. All of us right now are working from frameworks that were given to us. They will inherit financial wisdom, health literacy, which is why self-care is such an important part of
Dixie,
embedding into the culture.
May I interrupt you here?
Yes.
I want to apologize. I feel I have to bring you to a landing. I am glad we gave you this assignment because you have given us a roadmap. You have literally given us a roadmap. And there were some questions in the chat, and you have literally answered all, because this was such a well put together framework for us to work with. But
I was trying to go girl, come on, hurry it up.
And here I am just bringing you to the landing, but I know we have a
That's
time.
That's fine.
You said people can take pictures. I am going to ask RapTT as well to put this in something that we can give to the webinar, the attendees. Since it's a webinar, they register, we can give that, because that's very important. Because one of the questions I was thinking about, but you answered it as well, was, who are you leaving in charge of your legacy? Who is going to be, taking care of your succession plan? And that is just really, really important. And you touched on a lot of things. And I know you work with a different demographic, and I was wondering as well, are they in that sort of mindset? If you're 40 and up, are you naturally in that mindset, or do you have to get a push? Because again, we think of making it first before we get, to plan a legacy or to build a legacy. So there's a lot of questions there, but I think you've really laid it out beautifully. And I want to thank you for that. I'm just it's exciting, and it is something that I think it's something that's not well discussed.
No, not at all. I agree.
There are a lot of
Absolutely.
topics we touched on today, like mentorship, and so that we talk about in different conversations, but legacy building is not something that we talk about a lot. So maybe again for RapTT, it could be something that we can discuss further as well.
Absolutely.
But I know we're working with a time frame. So I'm going to give you 1 more minute to wrap up.
Okay, you know what? I was just at the end of it. I think I probably had just one more slide. Really, that was, I think, the last slide. That was the last slide. So you interrupted right on time. I kept looking at your face. I'm like, okay, that's the wrap up face.
I don't have a poker face at all. And I did promise that I wanted to just bring everybody back in, just so I can
Absolutely.
Because it's important for us to reflect. You can't think about leadership without reflecting and perhaps looking at our blind spots, because there are blind spots, and we have to be,
Absolutely. Yes, yes.
courageous enough to say that there's some things that I may not be seeing as well as I should. So I want to bring the other two panelists back in, and perhaps I just ask one question, just in a sentence, and I'll start with Janae. 10 years from now, what do you hope young women will say she gained because you chose to do something intentionally?
Very good question. I would say that I would like them to say that they gained more of that it wasn't about themselves. That one thing that they definitely learned from me is that it was never a trajectory to make a name for myself, but it was to make a name for others. But I can't help, but I have to go spiritual because of my relationship with God. That it was never about so what I really want to say is that it was never about making a name for myself, but it was about making his name known. Because I believe no matter what your professional space or your personal space, we must all bring everybody right back to Christ. So that's what I would really like everybody to do. That it was more than just themselves, but it was really all about him and his purpose in their life.
Thank you so much. Suniti?
Is it the same question?
Suniti, yes.
I actually don't have anything I want anybody need to say. What I would hope is that if anybody found anything in what I say, to release their own personal power. Because I think that is something I left untouched when I spoke, which is, what is an empowered person?
Mm.
And an empowered person, in my view, is whatever it is you think should be done, that you should think you can do it. It really is as simple as that. If you feel that crime is a national problem, don't sit down and keep calling the government, and if it's not doing anything, that is the issue. Pick up yourself, Within the ability of your resources, you just unleash your personal power to the extent that you can. You're worried about poverty, look for a family who needs help, or a child. Look, me first, hold myself responsible for myself. And I think if we all do that, we take away the power that other people have taken from us.
Thank you.
And we can hold them to account.
Thank you. Dixie, the same question.
Okay, I would say
in a legacy.
I would love to hear a young person say, I am taking time for myself because it's a source of empowerment. And because nothing can happen in life without self-care. Nothing can happen in life if you are not well. And I'd love for young people to understand the difference between wellness and well-being. Understand that wellness is just something, it's an industry. They provide resources for you, but that well-being is deeply personal, and that they have to invest in that themselves, and they have to be in touch with their sensations. They have to be aware of the sensations of their bodies and how they're feeling, and they have to acknowledge that, and then they have to take action toward that. And so taking time for self is the foundational thing, is the foundation for building any legacy, because without you, where is the legacy? There is no legacy if you are not healthy. There is no legacy if you are not well. So that should be the first and foremost place that you begin with you. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to take the liberty as the moderator to ask one more question. What is one leadership mistake or one habit that women must avoid if we are to accelerate as a collective group achieving a mistake or a habit that we should break in 2026? We can start with you, Dixie.
Okay. I would say existing in a silo, doing things alone. Like, we cannot move the needle. We cannot advance. We cannot build legacies alone. We need the community. We need others who believe in the vision, others who want to or have similar visions, others who are invested, the stewards. We have to turn to the people to get the work done. It just cannot be done alone. So I would say definitely turn to the people in the community who have a similar vision, who want to see whatever dream you have move forward collectively, and things happen. You know, the needle gets moved that way.
Thank you. Suniti?
Yeah, I can agree with that, because I think it's modeling a different idea of power. And if the idea of power is the patriarchal top-down, you don't have to pretend you know all the answers. In fact, being excited, not just allowing others, but being excited to hear what people can bring is what defines a different model.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Janae?
I agree with them both as well. And also I will just extend a little further, even to talk about it was like a mistake, and also I will mix together. I think it's better to be respected than to be liked. And that's something that I definitely learned. And I think as women, we have to always keep that in mind as well, especially when it comes to like personalities and professionalism. And I'm talking personal, because with your personality, you tend to just like, okay, let's make everybody okay. Let's make everybody feel okay. Let's don't offend others here. And it's something I had to learn and grow within my leadership, that because when it's time for correction, you know, and extension in terms of what the lady said before, and when it's time for that assertiveness, you don't want that struggle to just listen for that respect and that leadership to transpire. So I would always say it's better to be respected than to be liked. An extension also with boundaries. And I think that has a lot to do with the midst of it as well. As a woman, and especially when you do lead younger people, especially this generation, because they are now rewriting what they believe professionalism is, and keeping that boundary with that leadership as a woman. So better to respect and like, I seconded what they said, and boundaries.
Thank you very much. And thank you for naming those patterns, because progress is not only about what we build, but it's also about what we choose to stop doing as well. And I would like to thank all of you for your time, for your insights and your perspective, and just to congratulate you on all that you're doing. Again, it's not about silos, and it's really about the next generation of women. So for the audience, we have heard the stories of mentorship, empowerment, and legacy building, but we know, and I think Dixie said it, progress does not move by stories alone. Stories do not transform systems. We need action. So we need to have progress there, and it requires intentional investment of time, knowledge, credibility, and opportunity. So the give to gain is not a slogan. It demands more than goodwill. It requires us all to circulate what we have gained. And we cannot celebrate achievement if we're withholding access. And that is one of the things that came to mind, even when I asked the questions, what do we have to stop doing? What are the bad habits that we need to? We cannot celebrate advancement if we're holding access. We cannot speak of empowerment when we're guarding opportunities. And we certainly cannot speak of legacy if we're not building anything that survives us. Because when power is shared, we know that progress accelerates. So I just want us to leave this space, not just inspired, because I know when we celebrate International Women's Month, we talk about, all the inspirational things, but we have to have responsibility and resolve as well to open doors intentionally, to invest in the women who follow us, and to build systems that will outlast all individual successes. Because when we give strategically, I know we gain collectively. And I want to thank you so very much and turn this back over to the RAPTT and to thank them for giving me the opportunity to moderate this very successful panel. And I think this is an unfinished conversation. So I leave the ball in RAPTT's court. Thank you so much. But I do have to say in the meantime that I'm taking my hats off to the chairwoman of the board and the planning committee of RAPTT, and of course the founders and those who are the visionary behind this movement that has taken off by leaps and bounds. I want to thank all those who came on and to say that it is being streamed on YouTube. So of course, for those, you can share with your friends the YouTube link. They can look at it at a later time.
Ambassador,
You're muted,
you-
Ambassador. You're muted.
Oh, I'm muted. Was I muted all along?
No, you were not.
Okay. We need to tell them all the other events that are coming up this month. Thank you again.
Well, I know that we're live streaming, so I'm going to jump in and because I think there might be some, I don't know if there are some technical difficulties going on, but that's fine because I am so excited. I have 1 minute. I know in our busy lives, we rarely take an intentional moment to pause and reflect. But this Thursday, March the 12th, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., you are coordinately, and I said yes, coordinately invited to join us for the Power Pause. It's a meaningful session designed to help us step back from our daily demands and reflect on 3 key areas that influences our overall well-being: mental, financial, and physical health. These areas are deeply interconnected. When one area becomes out of balance, it often impacts the other. Taking time to pause allows us to become more aware of our habits, our stresses, and the choices we make every day, and empowers us to move towards healthier and more balanced living. During these sessions, the participants will gain practical insights from experts, useful tools to support daily well-being, and an opportunity to reflect on personal goals for health and stability. So yes, I invite you, all of you here tonight, bring a friend, a family member, and join us on Thursday, March 12th from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. as we take this emboldened step together, learning how small intentional pauses can lead to a healthier and more balanced life. So please join us. And I do want to say thank you for this phenomenal event that just took place. I mean, my head is going, I'm taking notes, I'm taking mental notes, I'm taking physical notes, and I know that everyone that was a part of this really enjoyed all of these presentations. So I want to thank everyone for that.
Hello, good evening again, everyone. I would like to share about our third event for Women's History Month, and that is happening on March 17th, 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. It is Reading to Rise, Born on an Island, a conversation with our very own Mrs. Golda Lee Bruce. So Reading to Rise, Born on an Island, it is an engaging dialogue with storyteller and author Golda Lee Bruce, inspired by her debut book, Born on an Island, Stories from a Trinidadian Girlhood. Through heartfelt conversation and active audience participation, this virtual book talk will explore the transformative power of personal narrative. It affirms that when we share our lived experiences, joyful or challenging, that we create space for connection, understanding, and collective growth. So we would even encourage you as of now We would be reading excerpts from the book. We'll have the author herself here with us. So that would be very exciting. And we would encourage you to get a copy of her book available on Amazon, on Kindle. If you're in Trinidad, you can get it online or in any local bookstore so that you can read along with us and really explore the power of the personal narrative.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sebastian Howard, and I would like to inform you all about the fourth event that we will have. It is scheduled on the 26th of March from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. That title is The Girl in Me, Tea, Truth, and Timeless Wisdom. I am very honored to talk about this event. It is an intergenerational activity that will last for 2 months. However, I want to take some key topics from today's discussion to give an idea about it. So intergenerational relationships, we're looking at community. The ending of community is unity. As shared by Ms. Dixie, community is the vehicle for generational change, and here at RAPTT, we are using it for intergenerational change. It's also giving persons an opportunity, according to one of our presenters would have shared, Ms. Suniti Maharaj, to give persons who did not have a place for persons within them to find expressions within their environment. Here we want to give women, older women, young women, aged women, an opportunity to find expression through a 2-month-long process. And to wrap up, it's an opportunity where our first speaker, Ms. Hera would have shared, where her mom would have said, community brings unity. And I just want to bring back at the ending of community, it's unity. And here we want to create an opportunity for intergenerational relationships where both age persons have the opportunity to build support and psychological benefits, and for younger persons to develop soft skills, understanding of self, growth and development, and to relive anything that a community or environment did not allow them to have purposeful expression of emotions. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about the last event that RAPTT would be having this month. In Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, and globally, non-communicable diseases dominate women's health, and these conditions represent the largest threat to longevity and quality of life. Many of these conditions are driven by chronic inflammation, metabolic stress, poor gut health, and low fiber diets. On Thursday, March 31st, 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., RAPTT will be in your home as we present online cooking with Dr. Natalie Palmer. She wears many hats. Among them, she's a doctor of clinical nutrition, certified vegan raw food chef, and educator, dedicated to empowering people through food. During this interactive sessions, Dr. Palmer will demonstrate delicious dishes focused on fiber diversity, anti-inflammatory ingredients, reducing excess mucus in the body, and other things. Recipes and ingredients list will be shared with registered participants before the event, so you can cook along and enjoy the experience in real time. These dishes will not only satisfy the palate, they will help nourish the gut, which is strongly linked to many lifestyle-related conditions. When we feed our gut microbes the right food, they produce the compounds that protect us from metabolic diseases and support better overall health. So register today, share the link, be a part of this unforgettable experience. Let us educate, cook, and thrive at the table together. Thank you.
Ambassador, hand the floor over to you for the call to action. Well, while we wait for Ambassador, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming out to our first event. This is our flagship event under the month's theme, Give to Gain, knowing that when women rise, we all rise. A special thank you to our speakers, Ms. Janelle Hira, Mrs. Suniti Maharaj, and Miss and Dixie Lincoln Nichols. We thank you so much for joining us this evening for what was just a time of real empowerment and a sharing of our stories and how we can better build a legacy, not only for ourselves, but also for the women and girls to come. And I'll take this time just to give Ambassador Smith the floor.
Thank you very, very much, Abayomi. The call to action really, as we close, would be to invite each of us to leave this conversation with one commitment. Think about one woman that you can mentor, one opportunity you can create, one piece of knowledge you will intentionally pass on. Progress, as I said, does not move forward by inspiration alone. It moves forward when we decide to open the door for someone else. When we give strategically, we gain collectively. Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome, Ambassador. And I won't say I've saved the best for last, but we would also want to take this opportunity to thank again our honorees, our distinguished honorees who came on this evening and received their awards, as well as a special thank you to Ambassador Anthony Phillips Spencer and Mrs. Phillips Spencer. We're so grateful that they were able to come on and not just share the history of RAPTT, but also their part in building this organization that so, fittingly supports women and girls of Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be at home and in the diaspora. And may I even say, this is a global initiative. So we're national, we are regional, and we are global. So a special thank you again to everyone who came on, to the team that worked in the background, and of course, to our audience, whether you're watching here on Zoom or you're on YouTube, or even if you would watch the recording later on. Thank you so much for your continued support to RAPTT, and we do hope that you will go online and look. We have a full calendar of events all the way down to the very end of March, in alignment with our theme, and we hope that you will join us. And again, we hope that you were blessed by everything that was shared today. Have a good night, and thank you so much for joining us.